Come on, demons. Come on, demons. Come on, demons. Come on, come on, come on, come on, demons.
Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and the Demons make it 2 on the trot, defying all the expectations that anybody had for them in season 2026 as they keep their top 4 aspirations alive. Joining me tonight to dissect our victory over the Kangaroos at Marvel is George. Good evening, George.
Good evening, Andy. No, sorry, I'm not doing it this week, am I? Welcome back, Andy. Well, Binman and I have held up our part of the bargain with 2 successive wins while you were away. So we're expecting the same sort of performance for you as you take up the reins again for this week.
Well, I was at the game on Saturday, so that's 1 win. Now let's hope that I can bring home what is it? It's not a trifecta when you win 2. Binman, I need to go to you. Joining us tonight to break down all the stats is Binman. What's it when you get the Quinella? that's the one, isn't it?
Quinella's first and second, Andy.
That's first and second. So what's a
1, 2, 3?
What's when you get 2 races in a row? Or is trifecta when you get 1, 2, 3 in a thing, not 3 races in a row? I know nothing about racing.
In the same race, first,
Right.
second, and third.
So
if you win 2 races in a row, then you're hopefully won for the day. That's usually the rule. If you have 2 wins in a card, then you should be winning the thing. I say.
You can show I know nothing about horse racing.
No, that was evident.
Neither.
So hopefully you've come back sharp from your bye period, and I apologise for that crack about someone said perhaps you were loading, and apologise for the crack about I thought you were supposed to get leaner when you were loaded, but
you haven't seen me until now.
I know, that's true. You do look leaner, actually.
I am.
You have been. Yeah, okay, that's good.
I was exercising while I was
not too
away.
bad.
And suntanned.
I am a little bit suntanned. I'm starting to lose it.
And your relationship with your family's better. The angst that you would have felt after even coming back from 96 points against the Hawks, you would have felt that angst. And,
well, I did. I was just telling the boys that I could only watch the first half of that Hawthorn game, and then I was watching the scores tick down literally on my watch, and I was like, no, we can't. We can't blow a 96-point lead, could we? Only Melbourne could do that.
If we had have, then we could have added that to the, let's time to break embarrassing records.
Yes.
Break that from the most, I think the most ever is something like, we've probably got it, but it's 45 or it's not that, 50 points or something, maybe a bit more, 50.
Wasn't it against St Kilda last year? that was the record. So.
Something like that. Was that forever in any margin, or was that at 3/4 time?
I think it was 3/4 time, but it still would have been an embarrassment. But it wasn't to be. Yeah. We won and we'd played well up, and for everything I saw, we were great. So I didn't even watch the comeback of that, but I was able to watch the Richmond game, and obviously I was at the Kangaroos game, so I'm caught up to speed.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you to you guys for holding down the fort while I was away. So it's much appreciated, and our audience appreciates it too.
No worries. Consider the fort held down. And speaking of fort and fortresses, we're back at our fortress next week.
Well, we were at this week. We weren't at our fortress. Last week we were at our Nemesis Stadium, and we managed to get another win. Well, I think we've got a good record with the exception of the Bulldogs game recently and the St Kilda game last year that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Our record at Marvel in the last couple of years hasn't been too bad. But yes, we're back at our fortress this week, and I'm looking forward to going to the G.
Except against the Roos. And I don't know whether you listened to my preview pod, but I couldn't believe it. Our record against them at Darklands was 9 losses, 1 win. So remarkable against the Roos. So now at least it's 9-2, but that's some sort of shit record against the Roos.
And I remember
that venue, not overall.
The win that we had at that venue wasn't a great win either. I remember being at that match. It was, I think, after our premiership year, maybe.
I'm confused. Didn't we play our home game against them last year? When Jerry knocked out Sparrow, wasn't that last year in the and at the Docklands?
We played them twice last year. Once early on in the year when we lost by 50 points, and then we played them later in the year at the G. So I don't think
was at the G. You sure the second one wasn't there as well?
No, it was at the G.
Well, that's when Jerry knocked out bloody Sparrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It hasn't been a happy hunting ground for us. You remember Ed Langdon had his ribs broken.
Well, that was the game we won.
Yeah. Down there as well, so we've continued on that course as well with two serious injuries from this week.
Well, there's Turner's 2 to 4 weeks, and CJ's a test, but CJ it looks like a calf, and he's always had trouble with or lower leg or whatever. So I'm not holding.
Though didn't earlier in the year he came off looking something similar, like I happened to have the binoculars on him. He stopped like the classic Achilles. That's what it looked like, But something similar happened early in the year where it looked like he'd done it and he was back in a week or two. So maybe it was a funny one, and he needed a fair bit of assistance to come off the ground.
He did it twice, actually, during the match. There was an early time that he went off, but he came back on and then did it again.
Well, same with Disco too. He was clobbered both times by a Melbourne player, and the second one he looked sick after the first one. So hopefully they visited him in hospital. But
we'll talk more about changes later in the match.
Can I ask both of you, I sat for the first time in the Medallion Club, and it wasn't nearly the hoi polloi that I expected it to be. The best I could say was that the cushion on the seats were comfortable, but I've been in classier joints than that, I can tell you.
Yeah, I sat on the opposite side of the ground from you. I was sort of smack bang in the middle, which was great seats. So that's what I do like, that level at Marvel. You're really close to the action.
Yeah, you do.
The one good thing I can say about that's Solar Stadium. But
that's right. And I was sitting directly above the players' row, and they were close. They really are close. You can hear them. But there was talk. I didn't know in my preview I talked about whether the roof would be open.
It's never
There's
open.
no bloody clarity on when it is and
it's not.
When there isn't.
It's closed
Well, someone
all the time.
put it on Demonland that it was going to be, but it was bloody AI who said it was going to be.
No, don't trust AI with stuff like that.
It's almost invariably they can't do it because if there's any threat of weather, it's closed.
No,
and even when it's sunny, you can't have it open because of the shadows.
Well, that was my understanding that it's always closed because it's not good for the broadcast. I guess if it's cloudy, that's a thing, but then there's always the threat of rain if it's cloudy. So.
No, well, there wasn't yesterday, and it's been open twice this year. And
it has been open. Okay.
Yeah, it has been open twice, and it would have been perfect. It was glorious outside.
You know what would have been perfect? To play it at the G.
Yeah.
Our home game.
All right, let's get into some housekeeping, which we haven't done for a couple of weeks. So I do ask each week for our loyal listeners to support the podcast and leave us a 5-star review and a comment on Apple Podcasts. And as always, we truly appreciate that feedback. And as a token of our gratitude, we give a well-deserved shout-out to those who take their time to share their reviews. And Gorn of the Dead writes, insightful panel of Demon Faithful. I listen every week. Love the insights given. Lots of content that the everyday person wouldn't think of or know. Highly recommend a listen if you haven't tuned in before. Well, thank you for that 5-star review, Gorn of the Dead. He's a regular listener and contributor to the show in the form of questions each week. He's got one coming up a bit later on, so much appreciated, Gorn of the Dead. Keep those reviews coming, and throughout 2026, if you leave us a 5-star review and a comment on Apple Podcasts, we will give you a shout-out on the show. On Wednesday during the day, I will be sitting down with Demons Premiership defender Jake Bowie to chat with him about his incredible 17-game winning streak from debut, his role in the club's drought-breaking premiership, the team's resurgence in 2026, and plenty more. So check out the podcast feed later in the week to listen to that interview. And don't forget to check out Binman Stats Files Preview Podcast, which drops every Friday. It's a companion pod to this show in the Demonland podcast universe, with Binman diving deep into the numbers behind the game and uncovering the key statistical trends that will shape the Demons' upcoming matches. Each week he uses the numbers to highlight the areas that could decide the contest and what Melbourne needs to do to get the job done. So keep an eye out for it in the Demonland podcast feed every Friday. You can also follow us across Facebook, Instagram, and X. One sec. Big man, you got to get that in before Friday, I think. Anyway, if you want to follow us across Facebook, Instagram, and X, or if you want to leave feedback, send through a question and just share your thoughts on the show. Jump into the weekly podcast thread on Demonland or send us a DM, and don't worry, we won't read out your full name on the air. You can find the Demonland podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Demonland Podcast and hit subscribe. And if you want to join in on the conversation with fellow D supporters, head on over to demonland.com, sign up for free, jump into the forums with fellow D's fans from across Australia and around the world. And if you want to give us a call, you want to call into the show live, give us a buzz on 04863 87929. That's 04863 87929. If you're listening live on your phone through demonland.com, just hit the call button on the player and it should open up straight into your phone. Perhaps wait till after Binman Stats Files and then we can get you on the air. You can also call that number during the week. Leave us a voicemail for the podcast. These calls go directly to voicemail, so no awkward conversations with an actual human. We've got a couple of voicemails to play later on as well. If you're listening live and want to join in and contribute in real time during the show, just click the chat button on the podcast player on demonland.com. You'll need to be signed up and logged into Demonland to participate, but jump in with your questions and comments and we'll do our best to keep an eye on it throughout the night. You can catch the Demonland podcast live every Monday night from now on at 8 p.m. on demonland.com. And now it's time for everybody's favourite segment, the Stats Files. Binman, you're about to take us through the key numbers and trends from the Kangaroos games. And just a reminder to everyone, if you love the Stats Files, don't forget to check out the podcast on Friday, probably on Thursday, maybe this week, for the standalone Stats Files preview podcast. That's where Binman does that deep dive into all the stats, previewing our all-important upcoming clash against the Cats. Take it away, Binman.
Thanks for that, Andy. I thought it was a really strange game to watch live, and I watched the replay. I've watched the replay, actually one and a half of the strange game to watch on replay, and it was interesting because the stats really bore that out. There were some really curious numbers in this game. Just quickly at the player ratings, I guess it's no surprise, but Cozzy Pickett was amazing in this game, 20.8. I'm actually surprised he scored that high because he just seemed to be swanning around the outside of packs and doing what the hell he wanted. There's probably a bigger question about that, but he's one player that's really benefited from the stand rule. And David King, who I'll give a shout out to, he's been some of the stuff I've caught of his this year's been really interesting. One of the things was he suggested ages ago that we should use Cozzy a bit more like Collingwood used Nick Dacos with handball receive and give and go, and they have been doing that heaps. His handball receive numbers have increased significantly in the last sort of 6-7 weeks, and he was electric in this game. 20.8. 20 is a All-Australian elite game of footy. Bowie had his best game of the season in terms of ratings, 18.1. He was huge in this match. So remarkable. It's great timing, Andy. What a great get him to interview him on the pod. He's been enormous since he's come back in. I think he's been in our top 10 rated players in every game since he's been back. Tommy Sparrow, 17.3, amazing game. He was awesome in the last quarter. Of his 17.3 player rating points, 8.9 of them were in the last quarter, so massive when the game was on the line. He's been a great leader. Matthew Jefferson, 16.1 player rating points, our fourth highest rated player, by far his highest rated game of AFL football. Over a half, 8.1 of his player rating points came in that first quarter. They were critical, and he had 6.9 in the third quarter, and that third quarter was really where we won that game. So critical performance by him. Colt rounds out our top five. Fantastic effort, 15.9. What a season he's putting together.
Yeah, I was just about to say, he's had such a great season this year, considering that, in my mind, he was on the way out, if he had another season like he did last year. I thought he would have been on a plane back to WA, but he's really cemented his spot in the team. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, he's been amazing. He's been incredible. And that back seven's been incredible. And he's gone from a player who I wouldn't have thought of as a defender. In fact, I can't see him defending, to being an absolute lockdown there. Fantastic. Speaking of defenders, Trent Rivers continues his good form. He was our sixth highest rated player, 14.8. Interestingly, 8.3 of his player rating points came from how he used the footy. So he was really impactful in this game with how he's played the footy, how he used the footy. And I mentioned this last week on the podcast with George. Harvey Langford is just the sort of player I love who suddenly look up, he's got 20, 25 possessions. My mate who I went with said Harvey Langford's been quiet. And by the end of the game, his player rating point was 13.3. He's sort of, I forget his disposal numbers, but, up around 20 mark. His points were split across ball winning and ball use. He already looks like a 200 gamer in some ways. He's going to be scary good in a few years. Down the bottom end, just a couple other player rating points to highlight. Maxi Gawn's player rating was 4.5. His lowest player rating, I haven't checked, but I can't even recall the last time he would have had 4.5. If he playing out a full game, that is, of course, injured or something coming off the ground. 4.8 of that was in the last quarter. So he had negative numbers for all but the second quarter, which was 0.4. So there's a few things going on there, which I'll touch on later in that question that Gone of the Dead asked about tactics and stuff. But one of them was obviously his injury. But I think it's more meritorious, this victory. It was a really professional victory. It's a bit hard to – I'm going to watch it again because it's a bit hard to make head or tails of this game in some respects. But we can't have won too many games by the margin we did, 3 goals with Maxi Gawn playing, only 4.5 rating points. Max Heath below him, 3.4. Our bottom two are Jakey Melksham, 0.1, and Joel Fitzgerald had little impact in this game, made a couple of poor errors. He was negative 1.3 for the game. A bit of a ball butcher. He was, as was Maxi, he was negative 6.7 for player rating points for how he used the footy, which is really low for him, and Max Heath was negative 1.4. So, just the interesting things before I go into the things from the preview. On expected score, our expected score was 98.8. Our actual score was 92. North Melbourne's expected score was 89.7, and they could only score 76. So I thought that was about right because that game was a really tough game. It was a lot closer than, it was. I think we were flattered a bit when we got out that margin to mid-30s or whatever. So on expected score, we win that game by 9 points, just a tick over 9 points, which is about right. They did a lot right. So speaking of getting a lot right, I got a fair bit right with my preview, including predicting Max Heath would take a high percentage of around-the-ground stoppages when both he and Maxi were on the ground, and Maxi might float forward to create matchup nightmares and back as required. He did a bit of that. But I got the game style and tactics wrong in terms of how we would play that game. I'll unpack that a bit later with that question that I've flagged before from Gone of the Dead about tactics. I also got wrong. I expected us to win by 6 goals plus. I thought I was a genius halfway through at the beginning of that, or 10, 15 minutes into the last quarter. But alas, frustratingly, they kicked the last 3 late goals. So probably not surprising given we had Disco off, CJ off, Maxi struggling. So nonetheless, we'll take a 16-point win. Keys to winning, I said that don't give them a sniff was key. 6-day break to their 8-day break. We had to come out and take the energy away from the get-go, and we didn't. So I might be on my lonesome here, but I thought Max Heath was pretty poor actually in this game for big parts of it. I'll talk a bit more about that. But at the ground, I wasn't sure what happened to Maxi or why Maxi was taken off the ground so quickly after the game started.
He was kneed in the quad by Sherry.
So once I watched the replay, I saw it was a flush, wasn't it?
And he went off for a good amount of time, and then basically, especially after we lost both Disco and CJ, Max Gawn was moved forward, partially to rest him, I'd imagine, after the injury, but also with the rotations, that instead of resting on the bench, he was being rested in the forward line. So it took him completely out of the game.
It took him completely out of the game, and I saw that on the replay, and Sherry bloody flushed him. It was up high, but I didn't know that at the ground, and I was wondering why they took Maxi off, and that if it was tactical, it was a bad move. So my guess was maybe he was injured. I just didn't see the injury.
He was definitely injured.
Yeah,
he hurt when he was hurting when he came off. He was on the ground for quite a while.
Yeah, and the quickest way to give them a sniff early would have been to take Maxi off, and that's what happened. And they jumped us early, and partly on the back of Heath being given a bath in that first quarter for the first 6 or 7 minutes. I'm pretty sure. I think they scored 3 goals from the centre bounce, and I think all 3 were in that period from clearances in the middle.
Yeah, they were a bit lucky in those first couple of goals. So if you remember, their very first goal was where the ball bounced in the goal square over the heads of 2 Melbourne defenders. Into Curtis's hand. And then another one was Lever, who was supposed to have thrown the ball, despite the fact that he palmed it out beautifully.
Oh, I thought, I couldn't even work out what that free was for.
Yeah, and then the other one was when Thomas Barrow gave a beautiful hand pass to Charlie Spargo to enable him to. So there were 3 goals that were basically none of North's doing, but more of good luck, bad luck, sort of as the game goes on. So.
Yeah, and look, perhaps that's a bit rough on the Moose. So, but nonetheless, like if you were to give them a sniff, you'd put Maxi on the bench, and that's what happened. And they had a sniff. So I thought we did super well to fight back. Start of the third quarter was critical, and start of the last quarter, but we gave them a sniff, and they were right in that game up to their eyeballs. The next key to the winning was win the contest and pressure battle. As I keep saying, contest and pressure remain undefeated. We didn't win the pressure battle. It was 165 to 170. We were down 5 in the first quarter, down 11 in the second quarter, down 2 in the third, down 4 in the last. So down 5 for the match. Wouldn't be many times this season that would be the case. So that in all 4 quarters. So we didn't win the pressure. They were up for the fight. So George, you want to jump in there, mate?
No, I was just asking Andy a technical question off the screen, so you keep going. They were great. Their pressure was great, but those pressure ratings, if you can compare it to last week, and I'll get into that in the tactics, is it was a much more flowing game than I expected it to be, and that explains why those pressure ratings are so low, because it was so much back and forth between the arcs. Tommy Sparrow, unbelievably this season with his pressure. He's averaging 57.9. In this game, it was 76. Our top 5 pressure players were Tommy Sparrow, Kay Chandler, Jack Steele, Joel Fitzgerald, Harry Sharp, then Langdon and Latrell. His season average for pressure points is 19.6, and in this game it was 32, and that's what the coach would want to see them. So win the contest. We were +4 for contested possessions. We were -2 for ground ball gets, +1 for post clearance contested possessions, arguably the most important of those numbers. -1 for post clearance ground ball gets, another critical number, particularly at the moment, and -2 for contested marks. So we actually only just broke even in that space. Roos did really well. Again, that helps explain why they were so competitive against us. Just a quick comment about contested possessions. They really should be called possessions in dispute or some such, because people think of them always as, they imply that each possession is a fight and there's a contest, like physical contest between 2 players. Most are, some aren't. So contested possessions are hard ball gets. So that's obviously a fight between 2 players. Loose ball gets, which isn't. That's when the ball is out in the open. So the contest is when neither team has the ball. Loose ball gets, contested mark, ruck hard ball get, and contested knock on, and interestingly freeze, are all contested possessions, because it's the way you get the ball back from the opposition when it's in dispute. I said that critical would be winning the clearance and stoppage battles, totals and score from. Despite my misgivings about Heath's game, his effort was awesome, no argument there. In addition to giving Maxi protection from being smashed all game, another likely factor in his selection was likely minimising Zeri's impact. And assuming that is my alarm for my 10 minutes, Andy, so I'll just crib 2 more.
Just keep going, that's fine.
And assuming that's the case, King would have been pretty happy with Heath's game. So we were +6 for the number of around-the-ground stoppage clearances, though -4 at centre bounces. So we're only +2 for total clearances from all stoppages. The scoring from those stoppages had a similar pattern. We were +17 for scores from around-the-ground stoppages, so big tick there for Heathy. But we were -7 from clearances from the centre bounce on scores. So overall, we were only +10 for scores from all stoppages, from clearances from stoppages. So hardly dominant, but nonetheless in a tight game, a sort of determinative factor. A really curious stat was, I don't know about you guys, it just seems such a messy, funny game. And this was the stat that sort of corresponded with that vision for me. A real curious stat was there 83 ruck contests in total, but only 54 of them actually involved a hit out. And of those hit outs, only 7 were to advantage. So Maxi had 3 hit outs to advantage, Heath had 2, Trembath had 1. And incredibly, Jerry only had 1 hit out to advantage for the entire game. So again, probably big tick tactically for King, but big tick for Max Heath, I think, because he scragged him, he pushed him, and that was his job seemed to be to get into Jerry's grill. But that's crazy. I mean, Jerry last season was talking about all Australian. He goes out, he can only have 1 hit out for the game. For context, AFL average for hit outs to advantage is approximately 25% of total hit-outs. It was only 13% in this game, so almost half the AFL average. And that's, to me, somewhat explains why it seemed such a messy game, I think, particularly around the ground stoppages. I think another key I said was win the scores from turnover battle. In order to do that, we needed to have fewer clangers than them. We just beat them in the turnover battle score-wise. We scored 55 points on turnover. They only scored 49. So we were slightly above our average, which is 53.9 per game. Big one here, I thought this was critical for them. This was massive for them. We only had 31 clangers, so we're really improving our foot skills. It's been terrific. And they had 47 clangers, and that was a big factor in that third quarter. The second half of the second quarter, they really missed a trick. They could have put scoreboard pressure on and done some damage. Another one was winning the aerial battle. In fact, arguably they won that aerial battle, -1 for contested marks, -1 for marks inside 50, and -2 for intercept marks. I said that it would be critical to not let them control the footy and the tempo of the game. And you would know if we'd done that, if we minimised the differential in disposals. Yeah, that was okay. -21 for disposals in total. It wasn't until the last quarter we had more disposals than them. We were +12. But in that first quarter and the second quarter was -13 and -12 for disposals. Clangers, we were, as I said before, -16. Uncontested possessions, -14. And marks, which is often an indicator as well, -4. So arguably, we did an okay job at minimising their control of the footy. Winning the battle of the defences, I thought, would be important. We've been awesome in the last 7 to 8 weeks defensively. And we're awesome again, I thought, just, brilliant, particularly in the second half of the second quarter. If you watch the replay, Clarkson was super frustrated at halftime. He was interviewed on the ground, and he was super frustrated they couldn't take advantage of dominating the game. So a big tick, though, for the defensive unit. They scrambled super hard in that quarter, but also obviously after losing Disco and CJ, they were brilliant, and kudos to Fritter for going back and playing such a key role. We had 6 more intercepts than them. We had 2 less intercept marks, as I mentioned before. We had 9 less tackles, 1 more tackle inside 50. The big one, though, is we only lost 12.5% of our one-on-one contests. They lost 28.6%, so huge tick for the defensive unit. Now, I mentioned before, one of the contested possessions is loose ball get, and I wanted to highlight this. Melbourne's defensive 50, our contested possessions inside our defensive 50, we were +16 for loose ball gets, 22-6. So we had 16 more loose ball gets than them in our D50, which is a really critical number. So it gets rolled up in the contested numbers. But the loose ball get is we were running quicker. When the ball was in dispute, we were getting to that loose ball, and that was the back six, and it was really evident watching the game. So huge pat on the back for the defensive unit. I can't be more impressed with the way they're travelling in the last sort of 7-8 weeks. They were my heroes for this game. It was, terrific back effort by the defenders.
Just as a little aside, I listened to Clarkson's post-game interview as well, and he really gave some kudos to Tommy Sparrow. You said something along the lines of, Sparrow has come from absolutely nowhere in the last 12 months. He's always been a very capable player, but even the opposition coaches have recognised that he's taken a huge step up, and that's certainly the case.
Maybe he always had it, just was never given the opportunity.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And also, I agree with that. But like we talked about it, Andy, last week about in the Richmond game, just the awe-inspiring amount of running that Langdon does. And we were talking that George sits on that side, so he would have had the front row seat to watch Langdon. He adds so much to our defensive unit. Like his work rate to get back and help out on defence. So
he's
a lot
always
of
done
those
that, though. That's nothing new. Yeah.
Nothing new, but he's gone up a level this year, and some of his defensive. So that's plus 16 for defensive those loose ball gets. A big chunk of them are him. He's mopping them up down the back, and Bowie too. But he's been.
And he always
awesome.
just has so much time. Like he doesn't panic when he's got the ball in his hand. He's happy to just sort of stop and prop and let the player come at him if they need to.
And he's mastered a particular type of kick, that little floaty one that he kicks for like 20 metres to, someone who's run ahead of him. He's been awesome this year.
Well, let's get into our listener questions. Lefty writes, has Matt Jefferson finally arrived? I'd be very interested to hear the panel's thoughts on Jeffo and his continued development. Go Lordy responds, I think he has. I hereby withdraw my suggestion that he needs more mongrel. No, he doesn't. He's just fine as he is. Daddy Jedi writes, loving his contested marking. It's really coming along. Also see his running was similar last week. Interested to hear the panel's thoughts on Jeffo's running. He was the D's third highest in total distance covered behind Colton Langdon and equal with Sheasel, covering 14 kilometres. I'm sure you'd be interested in that, B-Man. That's a lot of running for a big guy. And
15.2 the previous week, only second behind Langdon against the Tigers.
That's Langdon Colt numbers, pretty good. D Old Fart adds the synergy in our forward half is blossoming before our eyes with the emergence of Roo and Jeffo. I've got some audio from Rostar.
Hey, Demon Landers, Rostar here, and welcome back, Andy. Hope you've had a good trip, and you'll be glad to know that the boys have done an outstanding job with you away. So thanks so much, Bin Man and George, for steering the ship while Andy was away. Made sure that I know a lot of us love the weekly sort of wrap up and debrief and sort of the stats file as well, just to get us through our weekly fix of Demon sort of media. So, but I have one big question for you, hoping you can answer. Do we now have a premium forward line? All these years we've been looking for someone, and maybe it's just been time. Gee, Roo and Jeffo both leading out of the ball and creating space for each other and working as a team and sort of right in sync. It's been phenomenal.
That was it. He had some more to add, but took out that bit about Jeffo and Roo. And Flower Magic writes, will George finally admit that he was wrong about Jeffo? He declined to do so when offered the opportunity a couple of months ago. Come on, George, it's not that hard. Well, George, has your view on Matt Jefferson changed? Were you, and I, for that matter, wrong about Jeffo?
I don't think there's a right or a wrong about Jeffo. The reality is this was a fantastic performance by Jeffo, and we all hope that this is going to continue because it's exactly what we've been asking for what is years now. To answer the observation from one of the other listeners as well, it's not just Jeffo, it's JVR has all of a sudden, it's just in the last 2 to 3 weeks, he's not running under the ball anymore, and when the ball hits his hand, it stays there, which has almost been unseen even in the last couple of years. Jeffo's got a long way to go, and the reason that everybody's still got doubts about him is simply because at pick 15 he's been in the system for 4 years now fully. Even if we compare him with JVR, Jeffo in 4 years has played 18 games and kicked 19 goals, so let's not get too excited just yet. JVR in his first 4 years played 57 games and kicked 74 goals, so JVR is a long way ahead of where Jeffo is at the same point in their careers. But let's hope that Jeffo's got an equally the same trajectory as JVR's shown. But yeah, we really hope that this is the case. He has to keep doing what he's doing. I think for the first time in this game, I saw him actually get to a contest and spoil where he had no right to get to. It was something that I hadn't seen before. It's all very well contesting in a pack with 4 other players, but when the opposition are going to mark something and you deny them that opportunity, that's a big change in the way that he's approaching the game. So who was the listener asked about a bit more mongrel, go Lordy. I think we're seeing a bit more mongrel in Jeffo, and if that's the results and that's the way that he performs, then good thing for him and good thing for all of us.
Yeah, before you go, Big Man, I think we just got to play him more. Just keep playing him like we've been doing. I think that's the best thing for him.
Yeah, there's probably no other options at the moment. Kenfield's the only one, and I don't think he's putting his hand up at the moment. Yeah. We've got to keep playing Jeffo the way it is.
Yeah, but I would. That sort of smacks a little bit of faint praise, because it's not a matter of there's no one else. He's fully deserving his spot. He's been awesome. He's been awesome for the last 3 weeks. I said after the Hawks game that was the first time where I sort of shifted my thinking about Jeffo from I hope he'll make it to I think he's going to make it. Just because of the way he played. And I hadn't had the opportunity to watch the replay of that game, and I watched it last week. He was even more impressive than I thought, and partly because he took a massive hit, stood under a ball, got smashed in that Hawthorn game, dusted himself off, and got back up the ground. That was down on the halfback flank. And, just picking up these numbers, he 2 weeks in a row, he's second behind only Langdon for running, for total distance running. He ran 14 kilometres in this game behind Langdon. Was number 2 on the ground for distance covered.
Equal with Sheasel, who runs.
Equal with Sheasel, who's a midfielder, and he's obviously become, therefore, you're running that sort of clicks as a forward. You're very critical to the structure and the defensive, helping out the forwards, helping out and getting up the ground. And he took another massive hit in this, also up on the halfback flank under a ball in this contest. So there's not a question about playing him. That's what we talk about Cozzy in his first, second year. I can't imagine at the moment this forward line without him, because he's playing a critical role. Thing I really like about him is he's a natural forward. You watch him go, and even now that was interesting watching the Fox replay. They were talking about his speed over the ground, and King was talking about it in the call. And they used the example of that lead, which was an old school Jason Dunstall style lead. I loved it, that he marked out on the lead. I think it was his first goal. The separation he put on his defender in the first 3 steps was, to pardon the sort of oft-used thing, it was elite. It was just terrific. I thought he was great in this match. He kicked 4 goals. I said on the preview that I wonder if this could be his breakout game. I'm not sure if that's a breakout game, but he's, apart from the goals, his numbers weren't much different from these last 2 matches. So he's been super impressive. Just a final thing, it was, what's his name, on the ground, on Jeffo, that on the ground when Clarkson was interviewed at halftime, he referenced that Jefferson mark. He was saying that we really should have put him to, put some distance on them on the scoreboard, and then we give up a goal in the last 30 seconds of the quarter, which is super frustrating. That goal was right. That end was right below me. That mark was awesome. That was like an old school mark when in the 70s, you see players running with the back of with a flight of the ball and taking a chest mark going into a pack. That was such a fantastic footy mark. Really, I was thrilled with his performance, and he's got he's just got really good forward craft as well. And if another 2 years, he won't peak till he's 25. He's obviously an athletic player. He gets stronger in 2 to 3 years. He's going to be, potentially a force to reckon with. So entertaining game and good on him.
I'm sure Clarko would have been totally enthused about the kick that Zerha gave to him about 15 metres out.
I didn't see that. What did Zerha do?
Zerha kicked from full back and kicked it straight to Jeffo.
Yeah.
Clarko would have been pleased about that. Jeffo certainly was.
Yeah. The good thing, though, it's really underrated that he kicked it, didn't he?
He went back and kicked it. Yeah, that was the important thing.
Yeah.
All right, we have a caller on the line. Welcome to the Demonland podcast. Who am I talking to?
Hello, fellows. Time callers. I've called time for a while now, and now I've been talking about and his contested mark numbers. He's been pretty much at least to contested marks game he's played, and even in
Caller, I'll just stop you there. It's cutting out every second word, so I'm not sure what's happening with your phone line there. Do you want to give us a call back, and I'll pick up and see if it's working? It's just cutting off every second word, so I couldn't even make out who you were talking. But if you can just hang up and call back, if you want, I can call you back. I'll do that. I'll call you. 1 second. All right, bear with me, gents. Let's get this caller. See if we can get him back on the line. And hello, caller, you there?
Yeah, better now.
Keep talking.
Yes, Jeffo and his performance.
All right, it's still happening. You're talking about Jeffo, is that correct? All right, I'll have to hang it up there. I'm not sure if it's your line or my line, but we'll just be going around in circles. But I do appreciate the call.
I'll try the line.
All right, try that.
Try the landline.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. All right, so he's going to try the landline. I think he wants to talk about Jeffo. So we'll give him a sec to call in. If it doesn't work, we're going to have to leave it there. I mean, it could be on my end. Who knows? Technology, you know how it works. Big man, anything else you want to say quickly about Jeffo while we wait for this caller? Otherwise, we're going to move on.
Yeah, we'll really just reiterate what I was saying. I think he's got natural foot. I hate to say this, engorge onion if you're listening, close your ears because he hates this. But he strikes me as a confidence player, and he's got the confidence of his coach, and the way the players talk about him. He strikes me as a fella who's not your normal. That's not the right. He's a quieter sort of type than maybe the alphas that populate footy clubs to a degree. And I think that when he feels comfortable in that team, and I think King's done a great job of making him feel like he's doing his job, and that's going to help a lot for him, I think.
All right, we've got the caller back. Let's see. This could be my technology. We'll see. Caller, you there?
Hello.
Oh, I think it could be on my end. The same thing's happening. Just a couple more words. Say a few more words, and we'll.
Oh, you're getting me very well, are you?
No, it's cutting out. I think it's actually my equipment. I apologise for that. We'll just have to move on. We have talked about Jeffo, so sorry about that, caller. I do appreciate you calling in, but it's cutting off every second word, so thank you. All right, let's move on. King's game plan breakdown. Gorn of the Dead writes, would love for Big Man to go through our tactics. I've watched AFL my whole life and played in school, but the tactics are lost on me. If this is possible to explain King's tactics, it would be brilliant. The game was a grind and a tough win. Got to give credit to the team. Thought it was the best win of the season and probably hardest fought against a strong North. Big Man, can you take us down what King's actually doing tactically for those of us who find that it's all just a bit too much for us to... do you want me to play the audio first, though?
Yeah. Oh,
or you can tell me.
Play the audio first. Yep. This is from King's post-match presser.
How pleasing is it that you've been able to win in different modes words this year in the way that you play?
Yeah, I think we're evolving as a group, as a team. I think we're starting to, I won't say discover a hard edge about ourselves, but I think early days everyone was saying, we're playing an exciting brand of footy. And I think we want to challenge teams in every phase, playing an aggressive, form of football, and that's getting it done anywhere against any opposition. And sometimes you've got to do it, in different ways. And today, I thought we left a bit out there in terms of efficiency, the way our ball use was early. And I could see our players getting a little bit frustrated at times, but the game probably didn't look early like the way we wanted, but at halftime it was a 4-point game, and I thought that was just what's the opportunity in it for us now to actually turn the screws a bit and see if we can get it done. So it's pleasing here. It's as I said, North Melbourne's the talent they've got at their disposal under a roof here at Marvel. It's a bloody good win on wrap.
That's so in terms of the sort of answer to the Gone of the Dead, I wasn't quite sure whether he meant specifically in this game or more broadly, but it sort of picked up on my point that I've been making a lot on the preview podcast. One of the things I've been loving about King is he really chops and changes his tactics depending on the matchup, depending on where we're at with the high performance program, depending on the opposition, depending on the venue, and on that sort of continuum of coach who's very strategy system, and at that end, you could have put Goodwin in that 21 to 24 phase, as opposed to a more sort of fluid coach where it's strategy, so system versus strategy, and on the strategy end of the continuum, you have someone like Chris Scott. I definitely think King is in that end of it, in the strategy space. You were going to say, Andy?
I was just going to say that was maybe my criticism of Goodwin, that Goodwin had his strategy was not like dependent on the team or dependent on the venue or dependent on who's available, what the team you're playing or who's available. I think he had a system that he wanted to work for everyone, everything, and then my criticism was when that didn't work. It's not that there wasn't a plan B, but there wasn't a plan B. And I think, I don't know if King seems to have a plan B because things haven't worked in some games, and mid-games he's changed things around, and it has worked this year so far. It's not going to work all the time, but it seems to have worked. And that's just what I love about King. It's not going to knock, I'm not a Goodwin basher, but it was one of the things that did annoy me about Goody. So
Yeah, look, and I get that. And a lot of, it's a philosophical discussion we've talked about this. People love Clarkson for the same reason, and people love Chris Scott, but Chris Scott's been there 12 years, has won one flag, and so
two, did he win one in his first year and one?
Two, I don't. But you're right. He's won twice.
You don't count that first one because it was back in the last coach.
Yeah, he was gifted that one. No, but it is entertaining as well. And so there's definitely two philosophical things, and King is definitely on the Chris Scott sort of end of that continuum. But he very strategy, and it really chops and changes. But why I wanted you to play that clip is it's really the point that I've been making now for the last 5-6 weeks is people, and it's part of my bugbear about the analysis of the game. It's so shallow, it's unbelievable. It just does my head in. So Melbourne, a high handball meters gained, high scoring unit that's fun to watch for the first 3-4 weeks, and therefore that's how we play. King has said week in, week out, we're not that team. We are a contest team. We are a pressure team, just like Goodwin, and a territory first team, a low disposal, go forward territory. So if you wanted to summarise our game plan, that's it. So the other only other consistent thing is our play on rate, how quickly we play on after a mark or free kick. We're I think now number one in the AFL for playing on. We were number 2 last year, so it's not a radical change. But if you watch us, we barely ever stop, except when we go into that control manage mode, the regulate mode, when the sign comes up, the Warren G sign comes up. We do a little bit of control then, and that speaks again to the different tactics tactics that King brings to the table, but it's all founded on one thing: winning the contest, winning the pressure, and minimising the opposition's strengths and leveraging our own strengths, and getting it forward. So the most common thing he said about our tactics and our game plan is we are go forward, low disposal territory team, which to without over egging the pudding, that's what Goody was as well, by the way. So in this particular game, in the preview, I got a fair bit right and in what would happen, and particularly the keys to winning, because all of those things we needed to win on, and they beat us, which is why it was such a close game. It's why they were so competitive, because they almost matched us in the contest. They beat us in the pressure. They almost matched us in clearances. And so you take those strengths away from us and you've got a chance of beating us, and they almost did. The thing that I got wrong is that in my preview, I thought that playing the Roos at Darklands would revert to the method we used against the Dogs, because it's narrow. The Docklands is so narrow, it makes it really hard to use the width of the ground to do the way we like it at the MCG. So I predicted that there wouldn't be much overlap wave running and forward handball because of that narrowness makes that method so hard. And there would be lots of long kicks around the ground, but in particular deep kicks inside 50. I thought there'd be Market will bring it to ground and win the ground ball, smash them all game, huge pressure and win the contest, which we tried to do. But that's not what happened at all. In fact, it was a really high handball metres gained. So we had 458 handball metres gained. They had 261. That much to my surprise, it was a really high handball metres gain. And remember, it's not just the distance the ball carries when handballed. If a player receives that handball and then runs with it and handballs it again, handball metres gained includes that bit where they're running. And so that's what they kept on talking. That's what Clarkson said in that halftime interview. It was a very dynamic up and down the ground game by handball chains. And I think it was Bowie even interviewed in the post-match, it was Steele on the ABC, and he said they had a real focus, in fact, of not kicking long, of trying to get marks inside 50. So sometimes it felt like they should have kicked long and they were doing these little tiny things to spot up players. Did you want to jump in there, George?
No, just when you finished. Yeah.
And so it was actually very much a back and forth type of handball gain, which is the way that you get that flow, and which is also the way you get high marks inside 50, is because when you do that handball to a player, when it's really evident when it's clear, because the defender has to push up on the receiver, which creates a hole in the back, and you do that 3 or 4 times, and that's how you drag defenders out and get space inside 50, and you also don't have as many repeat entries, so it was bouncing back and forth between the wings. But a big sort of point of difference is that at the MCG, when we play that high handball metres gained, we run over 300 kilometres in a game. In this game, because of the narrowness of the ground, it was very much in straight lines. It's only 270 kilometres, 30 kilometres less in a game of footy is massive, particularly when you're playing the same game. So much to my surprise, it was a high handball metres gain tactically, but it wasn't a particularly successful one because, at least not in terms of the best measure of a success of any tactic, which is scores. And scores in particular as it relates to this stat, handball metres gained, scores from defensive half. So last year we had 500 metres plus gained by hand, handball metres gained, so not much more than we had this week against the Tigers, and we scored a phenomenal 70 points from our defensive half. Crazy score, and a score of 111, 70 of them were from the back half. This game we had 458 metres gained by hand. As I said, not that much more than last week. However, we could only manage 25 points from our back half against our season average of 38 points from our defensive half per game. So it wasn't very successful, nor for them though. The Roos had a pretty healthy metres gained too. As I said, they were 261 by hand, and they started that. So in a way, we were responding to what they brought to the table tactically, and Clarkson clearly had an emphasis on running at us. And so if you look at their GPS numbers, they dominated a lot of the running numbers. we were plus 43, but they only scored 22 points in this game from their back half. So we were plus 43 from points from defensive half last week, only plus 3 from points from defensive half this week. Last week, the match total for scores from defensive half was 97. So 97 points were scored from the defensive half in the free-flowing Tigers D's game. In this game, a similarly free-flowing game, at least back and forward, up and down the ground, was only 47, 50 points less from with almost the same number of, with similar numbers of handball meters gained. Tactically, it was a really interesting game. Clarkson, he generated that sort of game, that running game. We went with them. I think from that in the second half, we really looked to, we didn't press up in this game at all. So there wasn't much space out the back. I think we've stopped doing that altogether, or at least we've minimised that. And tactically, we went harder at them. So, in that last third quarter in particular, but also the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Just a little bit to answer Gorn of the Dead's question, and I'm not sure what his question is actually asking in this particular case. People consistently mix up game style, game plan, and tactics. Game style is established at the start of the season, where the coach comes in and says, I want to play the game in a particular way, which is ultimately going to win us the games over the course of the season. Game plan is when you come into the game, depending on your location, depending on the weather, depending on the opposition, you set a game plan that suits where you think the game is going to be played. Tactics happen during the game, where you finally find out what the opposition is throwing at you, what happens to your own individual players. And an example in this game, we lost 2 defenders. How do we cover that? Who do you play on particular players who are excelling in the game? That's all about the tactics. So there's 3 sorts of things that people consistently mix up, and they're completely different across all 3 situations.
And I think, before you go in, I think King sort of ticks the boxes in all of them, particularly that in-game stuff that he's able to adapt very well. He's done it a few times where we haven't been playing well, or things haven't been going right, or we misread, and he course corrects mid-game, and I think that's a very big tick.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've been missing since Uzo disappeared to Richmond, that all of a sudden we've got someone who makes the changes within the game, and King appears to be the man who's doing that.
That's a terrific summary, George. That's a good point around the sort of, I guess, sort of merging those 3 concepts. And tactically, so I think, in terms of the game plan, it's overemphasized how much the ball movement stuff, because when your King's asked, it's about his overarching thing is the contest, low disposal, get it forward. How you do that, of course, part of our ball movement is part of that. But that's where I've landed. We're a lot more... We've got a much stronger ability to control the tempo of the game and control the ball. And watching that Hawks game after knowing the result in a couple of weeks past was really interesting from that perspective, because we often go into control mode during quarters when it feels like, so we're not just attack the whole quarter. We often look to control a game, a quarter within it. But tactically, you're right, something that, but I think for this game, one of the 2 key tactics was Heath. I was really surprised. You and I were both surprised. I mean, I can't even remember when, it must be 6 weeks since Heath played a game of footy, isn't it? Like, when's the last VFL game you played?
It's probably at least a month.
I didn't even have him in my thinking for selection. I suspect, as I said, it was a clear tactic to, ironically, he got injured in the first 2 minutes, Maxi, but I think that they looked to protect Maxi by basically having Heath as a blunt instrument against Jerry, and minimise his ability to hurt us around the ground stoppages, because if you take Max out of them, out of those around the ground stoppages, we're going to drop off a bit. And so I think there was a dual part of that tactic. One, to be a battering ram against Jerry, and I love that hit that he put on him late in the ground, of which Jerry wasn't happy about. Which it was fair; it was a totally fair hit, and there was no sense that it was going to be reported. But also to blunt him around the ground, because I think Maxi, type of ruckman that he's not struggles against, but is those physical ones, isn't it, George? Those sort of big fellas, and he is a big fella, Jerry. So Moose was really great in that respect. So that's an example of a tactic that was.
The other thing I think that they were considering was Trembath, who was North's second ruck, has a really good leap.
Yeah,
really good leap, and Max has as well. Max Heath has as well, so he would have been a good counter. Whereas if you'd put, even though he didn't play a Petty in there, Petty wouldn't have been able to counter Trembath. So
that's a good point.
Heath became a very, very viable option.
And just on tactics, did you see other tactics in the game that caught your eye, George?
No, I think they were forced upon us by the when you move Fritter forward. Well, Fritter back to be able to cover. Well, then you've got to cover someone forward. So we're seeing Max. But when you lose two of your defenders in a game, it becomes a real tactical challenge to you to be able to pick things up. So it was great to watch what was going back and forth as the game progressed.
And against, Clarkson, who would be put himself right up there as a tactical. It's a really, really interesting distinction you make between those three elements: tactics, strategy, and what was the other one around the planning. And the tactics thing that frustrates me too is still, after watching the replay, I can't really work out what the tactics were at the stoppages. It's hard to work out, maybe I could freeze the thingo more often. It's hard to work out when they bring an extra to the stop. They're all the tactics that the analysts should be saying in game, so people who are watching it can understand it better. But it's impossible. Even at the ground, it's impossible to know, what was Clarkson doing? Was he bringing extras too? Were we playing one back? I'd love for them to actually unpack some of those tactics a little bit more.
Ollie Fan writes, in my humble opinion, whenever Gawn is assigned to full forward, our forward line does not function. The others stop leading, or if they do, the players delivering the ball just kick it in Max's general direction, obviously thinking Max will mark it, but marking in a pack when you are the target is very different to intercept marking. I think that when Max wants to let the Moose take the ruck, he should play back, not forward. What are your thoughts, George? We haven't had much of an opportunity to see two genuine rucks play this season, and I assume we'll only see it against certain teams. But when that does happen and Max is taking a rest from the ruck but not on the bench, where should we be playing him, up forward or a kick behind the ball?
I think in this game, it was, as we've alluded, there was the circumstances of the game that forced us to play Max forward. We lost Disco relatively, was it around about half time, I think?
Yeah, the second quarter.
Yeah, well, lost it for about 10 minutes and he came back on for not long and then off again.
We suddenly had a problem down the back line of not enough bodies. They sent Fritsch down there, which was a great move. And Max Heath was sent into the ruck and Max Gawn was moved forward to cover the holes, basically. And as I've mentioned before, Max Gawn would have ordinarily been on the bench, but we didn't have the option, so there was shuffling around the place. The last place we actually would have needed at that point in the game was to have Max Gawn down the back line, because if he doesn't mark it, he's not mobile. He's not like Fritsch would have was, for example, to be able to bring the ball out of defence. It's not just about defending or marking. You've got to be able to provide so much more down the back line. So what happened in this game is completely different perhaps to other circumstances. It's great to have Max in the back line when the game's got to be saved or stopped and the opposition where he can use his height. But in this game, he was used forward for a very, very different reason.
And I actually don't like him up forward much either.
He's not great.
No, he creates a matchup problem. And one of the players for me to watch in this game it's a Comden, isn't it?
Yeah, Comden.
Excellent young player, and he's key to their intercepting game. So he took him for a while. King and the presser said, it was just a corky, he's fine, Max. But he was clearly hampered that whole game, I thought, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a knee to the quad. Yeah. You can't stretch out. You can't run like you used to.
Flush right at the top of it too.
Yeah, and he was down for a good good period of time before he actually came off. He was hurt.
Yeah, he was hurt.
And I think the player ratings stats that you mentioned tell the tale of that.
Yeah, it's probably his lowest rating for a full game of footy, and would be one of the 3 or 4 lowest for the last decade, I'd say.
Desperate writes, B-Man, I find your stats files preview podcast interesting, particularly for footy punting. Gamble responsibly. When listening to your assessment of North, you indicated surprise at some of their player ratings being higher than you expected. Is this really a surprise considering who they have played? Their latest games have been against the Eagles, the Tigers and the Bombers. To be totally meaningful, should the player ratings be weighted depending on who you play? If this is done, I'm sure the Kangaroos would be also Rans. So, B-Man, your thoughts on player ratings and whether they should be some sort of weighted ratings depending on the strength of your opposition. I don't know how they do that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think maybe Desperate might have misheard my surprise actually was the Roos were much better in transition, a much better transition team than I thought they were. Their player rating is pretty average, really. I was really surprised, actually. That's what I said in the preview pod. I just simply hadn't watched enough of the Roos footy, and I was thinking they were really sort of Clarkson old school sort of pressure. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised because Hawthorn under Clarkson were very much a ball movement and control team, and so he's implemented that. And their transition is actually what I was really surprised at is all of the data that sort of demonstrates effectiveness of how well teams transition from the back half. They weren't far behind us we're top 4 or 5 and they're 6, top 4 or 5, 6 as well. That's what I was surprised at. In terms of their player rating, I think from memory, Jerry's their top rated player is 15. What I was surprised at is that, what George noted last week when we're talking about it is that so many of their top players are older players, like, the Caleb Daniels and the Jai Simpkins. I mean, he's not that old, I guess, but just on the weighting the player ratings are, you don't need to be weighted, but they're, now one of the good things about the data now is we have more than enough data at round 19 for all sample sizes to be big enough. So in the first 2 or 3 rounds, they're skewed, like particularly handball meters gained, for instance, and things like that. But by round 19, they're, way past skewing stage. So, the player ratings, assuming that you're not including players who've only played 1 or 2 games in there, they're the full season. They're the real McCoy. So where they're at, and so there's no really need to weight them. So, for instance, Maxi's our highest rated player, 18.2, his highest rated season ever in his 15-year career or whatever it is. Jerry's their top-rated player, 15. That's weighted. That's a big difference in rating. So you could also look at the number of players in the top 10. But if you wanted to, you can slice it all up in different ways as well. You can look at the last 5 matches. You can look at the last 10 matches. You can look at the career player rating. You can look at the season player rating. So effectively, it is weighted. And so in this game, that's part of the rating system of the player rated. This game, you can look at, you can even drill down to how many points we get for using the footy, how many points we get for how we use the ball. And so you can look at it. If you want to get granular, you can do that too. But essentially, you can weight it by looking at, who are their best players. And, as I said, Jerry is 15 and a bit. We're 18. So you could, right there, you go, our ruckman is significantly better every game and than their ruckman. So they are by their nature, they're weighted. And so, it's suffice to say we have got a stronger team on paper than they do. We've got a stronger list just on the ratings this season. They are weighted by definition almost.
Dominion asks, are there any concerns about the late junk time goals we've been conceding beyond the impact on percentage that could ultimately cost us a ladder position or 2? My concern is that we're switching off late in games. That may be a deliberate strategy to conserve energy once the result is secure, but if we can't stop opposition momentum in the closing stages, particularly in finals, good teams could take advantage and run over the top of us. So, George, are you worried about the goals we keep conceding late in games? I know it's junk time and the results are usually done and dusted, and percentage aside, is that a deliberate energy conservation or something we need to iron out before finals?
No, we spoke about this briefly last week in the Hawthorn in the Hawthorn game. In this game again, it was very different. We were 2 defenders down in that last quarter. Two of our intercepting type of defenders as well. North got the rub of the green out of the middle a couple of times. It was almost foregone conclusion that they were able to get, I think it was 3 goals in about 3 minutes. That was just the way the game panned out. Unfortunately, it was nothing deliberate, nothing that was a plan by any stretch. It was just they got lucky and we didn't have the people to stop it. Interestingly, at this point in the year, it's not going to affect us in any way, particularly when you look at the teams around us. Winning games is at this point is critical to us, not the percentage. As we stand with the players around us, Adelaide's a good one that's on the same number of points, if I remember, as us. That we're about 8% behind, something like 8% behind them. In order to catch up to them, we'd have to win our remaining 5 games by about 4 goals every single game, just to catch up to Adelaide. So it doesn't make all that much difference. If we hadn't conceded the last 3 goals in this game, we would have picked up 1%. Still would have left us 7% behind Adelaide.
What about the
Adelaide in what position? Sorry.
What about the 60 points we conceded against Hawthorn?
But then what's that saying about if my bloody auntie had a beard, then they'd be, it's like saying, what about the 3 late goals we kicked against Hawthorn? Don't they count, Andy?
Yeah.
Sorry, the 2 last goals we kicked.
Yeah.
Do they count, or only the one that you can take off?
We would have been in a worse situation.
Yeah. The thing is that mathematically at this time of the year and the season, you can't change your percentage by all that much.
Thank you.
Unless you win by 90 points.
By
a percent. Yeah, exactly. That's the only way. And even then, you don't change it by all that much. The sad reality is, for us, it's going where we finish, whether we finish 4th or 6th or whatever, is totally dependent on the games that we win. So we're what have we got? Adelaide are about the same, but Adelaide's coming games are against where are they? Richmond. They've got Richmond and Essendon, 2 of their 5 games. Geelong are the ones who've got the dream run going into the next couple of weeks. They play North, apart from us this week. They play North, Essendon, and Richmond in the coming game. So while we're currently 2 games ahead of them, we're 7% behind Geelong where they sit. So Geelong are going to increase their percentage by some extraordinary amount or non-extraordinary amount. We're not going to catch them from that perspective. The important thing is if they win 2 more games than us, then it's going to be a factor. So we have to win the games.
We have to beat them, basically. That is a big game.
That comes down to it. In all honesty, the real game that will determine where we sit on the ladder at the end of the season will be the game against the Bulldogs. Yeah. Both percentage-wise and games-wise. They play Richmond and North in the coming weeks, so they've got a chance to increase their percentage fractionally. But again, it's going to be whoever wins that game is probably going to get the 6th position out of it. The Lions, who are again on the same as us. They've got to play Carlton, Hawthorn, the Suns, and Collingwood. So their games are a little bit harder than what the others are. But ours, we've got a very competitive. Over the next couple of weeks, when we're playing Geelong, we've got a game against Port Adelaide. We've got the Freo, the Suns. Our problem is about winning the games, not by how much. So,
yeah. All right. Danny Jedi writes, I found Cozzy to be more exciting than usual this week. He seems to be toying with opposition plays, using a step to send the players where he wants them to go and then dancing around them. Not really a question, but I feel his brilliance in this area warrants a little discussion, as I, for one, will enjoy listening to you talk about Cozzy's elusive running. Thanks for all your work. Absolutely love the pod. So, big man, what did you make of Cozzy's elusiveness this week? He did seem to break a couple of ankles of the opposition with his breaking of the line, selling candy, dancing around with bursts of speed. It's not something you'll find on any stat sheets or in the player ratings, but it's fun to watch and absolutely contributed to our win. I mean, some of those, he'd just sidestep and then go on angles and they couldn't catch him. They were,
He was amazing to watch. I'm just looking at his ratings now, probably because I don't back for North Melbourne, but I should have. Geez, Luke Davies Uniacke, talk about going under my guard. He was the top rated player in this game, 24.5 player rating points above Cos. Cos was the second, 20.8.
Barely noticed him.
Yeah, I barely know.
I know who he is and how good he is.
Already.
He didn't. Yeah, I noticed a lot of other players.
He's like Jack Steele.
A little bit like Jack Steele, because I don't notice Jack Steele a lot. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I know he does what he does.
Well, and 12.9 of his points were how he used the ball. So he's obviously a bloody good ball. Anyway, this is not the North Melbourne podcast.
No, it's a Cozzy. Danny Jedi wants to hear us talk about the elusiveness of Cozzy and not about how good Davies Uniacke is.
Well, in terms of the overall, I can't there are some numbers that give some sort of talk about the
Don't
elusiveness.
Use the stats. Use your eyes.
Well, he's such a creative player. As I said before, I think that he's really benefited from the stand rule because you can't do anything. You have to if you don't allow that handball, it's an automatic 50, isn't it?
Mm.
Isn't it automatic 50 if you block the handball receiver? And so he's got from a standing start, he's so quick. He's so quick from a standing start. So there are some actual numbers that I did draw up. So he had 26 individual sprints in total in this game. So above Jack Steele was second, Latrell was third, Cade Chandler was fourth. McKercher for them was the only player in the top five. So he had 26 individual sprints in this game, Cos. His repeat sprints, he topped that chart as well. He had 5 repeat sprints. Sharp, Latrell rounded out the top 3. They only had 1 in the top 5. Really critical numbers this is. Speaking of the tactics, the strategy of game plan, is that the other thing I missed is how fundamental running power is to the philosophy of King and his in the game plan. So some of his numbers, in terms of sprinting and running are incredible because, he's so entertaining to watch. I can't recall a more entertaining player. That translates, though, into he had 723 metres gained in this game, and that's just crazy. That's unbelievable. So by far the top, the next was Trent Rivers, 613, and then Jake Bowie rounded out the top 3 with 533. So 110 more metres gained than any other player on the ground. He had 7 inside 50s. I said before his player rating was 20.8. He did the damage early. That was the thing in the first half. 6.1 of his points were in that first quarter, which was super important because, he didn't keep us in the game, would be overstating it, but he made sure that we weren't 4 or 5 goals down at quarter time. And, he was just incredible to watch. And I don't know about you guys. I kept on thinking, are they going to go, are they going to man him up or something? The problem is how do you man someone up from a standing start without giving away a free kick? His acceleration is so quick. One thing they probably could do is at least block his run towards the contest a little bit. But as soon as you do that, you've got a player who's out of their system and their structure. So, his ball use in this game is also off the charts. 11.7 of his player rating points were how he used the footy. So he was super creative. Those little chip kicks. He seems to have lost his kicking for goal touch, though, it strikes me. But it's hard to think of a more exciting player in AFL footy at the moment, I reckon.
It certainly looked like he had the spring back in his step this week compared to the last couple of weeks. So he's been looking a bit flat, and I don't think there was any better example of that where he got the ball in the middle and he bounced it when he was surrounded by 4 North players. Just went straight through the middle of the whole lot of them. He had no right to whatsoever. And then he handballed it to himself. So he got a handball given, a handball received, then picked the ball up and still delivered it into the forward line. It was just not stopping him. No one was going to stop him. So it's good to see him back to where we now expect him, which is a pretty high benchmark. But it's a joy to watch.
That play, George, was hilarious because at first at the ground. I thought, what's he doing? And then on the replay, it's evident he did that deliberately. He handballed it to himself. Like that's taking the piss, isn't it?
Yeah.
Handball it to yourself and then run onto it.
Great to watch.
Great to watch. Just so at 7, with all of that, he had 7 score involvements as well. Just so entertaining to watch. And even I think the mark of Cozzy is how brilliant it is you don't hear a bad word about him from opposition fans. So the closest I got was the Collingwood game, and that was all in good fun, I think. But I thought Latrell too had an exciting game as well, and he did some really nice things.
Well, he didn't have high possessions, but he certainly, the pressure that you alluded to, and kicked 2 goals. And I've always said, if you're not getting high possessions, the pressure's got to be there, and then most importantly, goals. So, yeah.
One thing though, and I wonder what the coach does about this, because I don't know what you guys thought, but he burnt Sharp Cozzy big time and elected to kick it to Latrell in a 2-on-1 contest. Now, Latrell made it all look good because he marked the ball without realising that would have been paid, but he played on immediately and kicked a goal. But Sharp was 35 metres out, directly in front, all by himself.
He's looking after Latrell at times. He definitely
at times.
is.
He does it all the time. It reminded me very much, because I went down to the footy with a mate who I saw lots of game when I was a kid. We used to alternate seeing Melbourne and North Melbourne for a couple of seasons, and I watched the Cracker brothers, Phil, Jim and Phil, and the way they played together and the way they looked to give each other the ball, it reminds me very much of that.
Look, when it's coming off, it's all good. If it doesn't and costs us, then All right, we've alluded to this a couple of times tonight, but Rue Beauty writes, love Frida behind the ball, so composed, definitely a move King could do when the need arises. Mandalorian agrees, saying, I too thought the move of Frida to defence when Disco went off injured was an inspired choice, and he made some decent spoils and is, of course, a very good outlet for forward forays off half-back. It's great when you have the luxury to be able to swing a player like Fridge down back, when the thought of doing that in the past 2 seasons would have been robbing Peter to pay Paul. George, what did you make of Frida's stint down back? Is that something we're likely to see more of, Fritsch as an actual swingman, or was it just using the asset that we had on the particular day? Because I guess if Petty would have been playing, would have been fit and playing, he would have been the one that we swung back instead.
Yeah, I think it was just the circumstances on the day that, Frida's, we needed Frida's mobility and ability to kick the ball and deliver down the back line of when you're trying to replace a Disco or a CJ or both in this particular case. So he was the man for the job at the time. I don't think we would have taken Frida out of the forward line. He's far more valuable to us up forward, except in these circumstances in this game. So I don't think you'll see it too often.
He's a good distributor off halfback as well.
He's excellent. Yeah, his kicking ability is just first class. So there was a lot of waxing between him and Langdon on the wing at that time, back and forth. But it was good to have him, and what he delivered, that was the important thing.
Yeah, and that's a good point, George, because that waxing is a bit what I mean about the control. Like, we are not flat, foot to the floor all the time. We use control often. And I think the other, just picking up your point about the different elements, the difference between tactics, but also for me, picking up that conversation about the philosophy of coaches. Mandalorian picks up on it in his question. The luxury of being able to have a swinger player like Fritsch down and back fits very much with one of King's philosophies. Is he has said he likes players being able to play in multiple positions and being flexible, and really leans into that. And so this season we've seen Colt go back. We've seen him be a tagger. We've seen Cross play on ball and play wing. We've seen Langdon at half back and on the wing. We've had Rue going into the ruck. We've got Petty going back and forward.
Sharp forward and wing. He was playing a bit on the wing. Langford as well.
Frida now on this weekend. And when that's clear, that's part of your philosophy, then players who want to play know, well, I've got to build that aspect into my game. So it really fits with that philosophy. Also, that control that, I think is a philosophy as well. And one thing I like about Fritsch going back is that, he showed real leadership, and that's something he's been criticised over the last 3-4 years a bit And I think even before he pushed back, he was working super hard up the ground to help out in defence. And I thought was his best game I've seen him play from a leadership perspective for a long, long time, Fritter. And so I love the way he played in that game.
The knock on him last year was that he seemed disinterested at times, and this year there's none of that.
Fully switched on.
He's bought in. He's team first. Not to say he was never team first. There was that knock that he used to burn players and all that, but now I don't think that's part of his game. He's a team first.
He's been great. And just the other thing about philosophy, I think that's really important. I was thinking about this during the week. I think Kings, it's really important to him. He mentioned it. I forget the context. Is we can put a score. We can score really quickly, and now that's exciting and it's great to watch. And we love to see that at the footy. But from a tactical and philosophical point of view, it's really important to the way King plays, because suddenly we can put the game out of reach of an opponent, or we can come back, which is what we did in this game. If the Roos had that ability and put the scoreboard pressure on, which is the ultimate pressure, isn't it? In that end of the second quarter, we could have been staring down the barrel of a loss. They played well, the Roos. But our ability in that end of the third quarter, in the beginning of the fourth quarter, to put scoreboard pressure back on them quickly, took the game out of their grasp in the blink of an eye. In 15 minutes of footy played, we suddenly weren't going to lose that game, and that's all because we can score quickly. And it's really important to King's philosophy, not just the end score, but the ability to score goals in a short period of time. And of course, it's super exciting to watch.
Harp D writes, at the start of the season, King said his philosophy was to attack teams with a weight of numbers through the midfield and eventually wear the opposition down. However, as the season has progressed, the midfield rotations appear to have narrowed, with Sparrow, Steele and Pickett attending 24 of the 28 centre bounces against North Melbourne. Does the panel think this suggests King has concerns about the midfield depth currently available, or is it simply a reflection of the strong form of those three players, or any other theory? And given Sparrow's importance to the midfield, have we reached the point where the club should be prepared to give him whatever it takes to re-sign? So, Big Man, were you aware that our midfield rotations have narrowed down to an almost exclusive trio of Sparrow, Steele and Pickett? Any concerns about a lack of depth there? And what do the numbers or your own eyes tell you about how we go in the moments when this trio isn't on the field together? And then if you want to talk about the importance of Tom Sparrow re-signing, please do.
Working backwards, it's super important, but of course we don't give him whatever it takes to re-sign. He is important, no question about it. But I think that you go down like for instance, St Kilda and Naz. Have they got
There's a limit. I
don't want to
guess.
knock Naz, but who would you take? I would take Sparrow over Naz without maybe not, but you know what I mean. They've waited
got to
there.
Be a limit.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he's super important, and I think his kicking has been super important. But to answer the question, I think that, I've been talking about it. I've been talking about it on the preview pod all year. Up to what round was the Freo game? Was that second or third?
Second round, yeah.
Third.
Our second
we used
game.
11 players went through the midfield in that game, and then it was 5. But it's basically been 4 since then. So it sort of actually dovetails quite neatly with the discussion we were having before about tactics and strategy. And he may well have had a thinking and a strategy at the beginning of the season that we would attack team with a weighted numbers through the midfield and wear the opposition down. He's changed his strategy and thinking on that significantly. We have 4, 5 only a couple of times since then, and only then mainly through injury, and only then that 5th player only takes 1 or 2 CBAs.
Who are essentially the other ones? So we've got Sparrow, Steele. Who are the other ones? We've got Sparrow, Steele, Pickett.
Well, Windsor was in the name, and maybe he hasn't been right or whatever. He's now permanent high half forward. He's been high half forward for the last 3 weeks, and Fitzgerald's taken his midfield minutes.
Fitzgerald, yes.
Yeah, so it's Fitzgerald who's been but before that, when Windsor was fit, it was him, Sparrow, Steele and Pickett, and now it's Fitzgerald who's taken Windsor. And it's basically those 4. So it's Sparrow, Steele, Pickett and Fitzgerald now every week. And like Pickett takes 83%, Cos takes 83%, Steele's 83%. So there isn't any other. That's centre bounce attendances though, and I fall into the trap thinking that's the midfield. There's all the stoppages around the ground. But if you just look at centre bounce attendances, it's essentially the same same 4 players, and at the moment Fitzgerald's one of them. And he probably stays in until Windsor's fit enough. If that's an issue, if that's the reason he's not there, to go back in. Maybe Laurie, I don't know. Laurie's really impressed enough to be a full-time mid. So Fitzy's probably got that job at the moment. But I just think it's been a change of thinking about the importance of that. Though my memory, a little bit of the weighted numbers, was more about the swarm, and that's probably the other thing about his King's tactics that I think is we play. I've seen Adam, the God on Demonland, talk about it, Gegenpress, it's called, which is isn't it? Klopp is in Liverpool's the idea of pressing up and swarming and not giving them any space whatsoever to control the ball. We do that. So even if we're only running 4 or 5 players through the centre, we swarm opposition. So we have 4 or 5 players around it. The challenging thing, you've got to be super fit, because as soon as you turn the ball over, you've got to get back into position. And so that was always the knock on the Gegenpress, is that it opens you up for rebound goals. And a lot of teams, that's exactly how they try to beat Liverpool, for instance, with getting out goals out the back, absorbing all that pressure and then getting a goal on the rebound. But he loves to swarm. Like, if you watch us play, and that's why I like watching from behind the goals, we swarm in a way that we didn't even under Goodwin, where it was more zone structured on the field than it is under King, although he still employs a zone defence.
I think the other thing is, just to revisit history, was where we were at the start of the season in terms of our midfield, that we lost Oliver, we lost Petrarca, and Viney hasn't been available for the whole season. So from the coach's perspective, we almost had, we know what we get for Jack Steele. Who's next in line? Tom
It was
Sparrow.
an audition. It was an audition process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were running all sorts of people through there just to see whether they were capable of performing. Now, we've been lucky. Jack Steele's been exceptional. Sparrow stepped up in a big way. Pickett's spending more time in there.
Yeah, 85% he's averaging this season.
Yeah, compared to last year. So it was for the start of the season. It was an audition to see who's. Now we know exactly who we want in the middle, and I think it's interesting that Fitzgerald's come in and he's cemented that spot just as a grunt in and under,
exactly,
and which is what we wanted as well. So, yeah.
And I think that's where, look, he's been a forgotten hero, hasn't he, Viney? And it doesn't look like he's going to play again this season. But Fitzgerald's playing exactly the role that Viney would be in that midfield.
Yeah.
And in a way, it reminds us a little bit of what we've lost and how much more he may have dropped off in terms of some of his numbers or whatever, but he's such a heart and soul player, and of course he'd play ahead of Fitzgerald. But you're right, he's exactly that meat and potato player that you need. I've been just on Steele. I've been amazed how I don't know. Maybe I just didn't ever sort of. You're right. He's a little bit. He's a bit like LDU. He plays and gets a lot of numbers, just does everything well, doesn't he? But I didn't think he was such a good footballer, which is stupid. He's an All-Australian and he was captain, and but he's been amazing. He's been our 3rd highest rated player this season. He's just been one of the best pickups in my time following the piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where am I? Okay, lazy.
The backline's evolution.
Yeah. I just thought I'd skip something. Lazy asks, can we take a good look at what the backline is doing? To me, this looks like the area with the most unprecedented success in 2026. We went from having a strong zone system to what seemed to be more of a hybrid one, with players knowing when to leave their man to help out others. This unit has given some good forwards a bath recently, with Nick Larkey the latest to add to the list. Keen to hear your observation on what has been different with our back six this season. George, what's your take on the changes to the structure and the system of our back six this season over previous years?
Again, I think we need to do a history repeat from where we were at the start of the season.
Definitely.
We had Bowie has only played 10 games this year. Rivers has only played 11. Salem has only played 5 out of the 18 games that we have played. We lost May, and we've been plugging holes with people like T-Mac, and as we spoke about earlier, even Langdon down the back line. Giath was someone who filled a need for us. But more importantly, since we started to get people like Bowie and Rivers back in the side, things have become very solid. We've also had Colt, who was playing anywhere from half forward to wing to occasional half back. He has absolutely solidified another role in that half back line. So in the last half of this season, we've got suddenly a solid team of players, and Lever has been there all along as the general in the back line and the real bedrock for us. But for a start off in this season, we had lost players, we had injured players. Now they're coming back, and the back line just looks so solid compared to where it was earlier on in the season. So losing Disco, unfortunately, and also Jath this week will really stretch us in terms of the solidity that we've come to experience, and particularly when we're coming up against Geelong, who've got a pretty decent sort of forward line. So. Sorry, Andy.
One player that you didn't mention that stepped up that wasn't last year, sort of a staple of the back line is Howes as well. He's really
absolutely
cemented himself.
Yeah. Even Disco has taken a big step up from where he was. Now, he was fantastic before, but Howes as well, who was one of those players who was in and out of the side on a regular basis. But he's solidified. So we've got people who weren't there effectively, like Howes and Disco and Colt, are now rock solid in the back line.
And the thing that's most impressive is they've now got that synergy that all the best defensive units have. That sort of instinctiveness where you think they just know that someone's going to help out. They know that handball, that someone's going to be there for the handball receive. That really instinctive. And I wrote this on Demonland not long ago that it's sort of logic would suggest it's much harder with the way the ball's moving at the moment for defences to get themselves set. What's your sense, George, in terms of would be right to say that King still runs a zone defence?
Yeah, I think there's still a zone. But what we're seeing is, I've noticed it particularly with Colt, his willingness even in the last 6 or 7 games, his willingness to come off his man.
Yeah,
that tells you someone who's confident about where his role is in the zone. And if you're playing a zone, that's exactly what the players do.
Yeah.
Somebody else comes into your area, you take them, and it doesn't matter what you take. You read the play, you look at what needs to be done, and you go and assist. So,
and then speaking of assist, gold dust. Part of that is that all the other players who aren't in that back seven are assisting as well. When you hear the magic phrase the commentators say that heard Lewis say in the Hawthorn Melbourne, it looks like they've got an extra player on the field. That's when it's all working well, because you've got your forwards helping out, you've got your mids helping out, your higher forwards helping out defensively, and your
wingers in Langdon getting back there.
Yeah, and Rivers getting back to his best form. I think Bowie, I'd be fascinated by your interview with Bowie. That's Wednesday, huh? That'll be a good question to ask him. What do you think? What are how the challenges? One of the interesting things in the data is there's something like 15% less stoppages this season than's been the average over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. That's a lot less stoppages, and defensively, it's easier to set up your zone when you get a stoppage because you can get everyone in your right position. So it's a lot more fluid now. The ball's moving in motion a lot more time, which is just must be more difficult to maintain your defensive structures and your system. Just on that, George, I had a question without notice that made me laugh when I saw this question. Is Kenny Hinkley, with his love of old school no zone defence, being named the Tassie coach? Any thoughts on that?
Oh, well, we'll find out in 2 years, won't we? See whether it works or not.
Yeah.
It didn't work at Port.
Maybe his old school, I'm not going to play a zone defence type of modern, maybe by then it'll, everything old is new again type thing.
Yeah, might have reverted.
Yeah. Just a quick thoughts on Buckley not getting the gig. The gig was his to lose. He didn't take the Melbourne gig.
2 jobs were his to lose, it would seem.
Well, he didn't take the Melbourne gig because of Tasmania, and now he doesn't have a gig. I don't know if he's going to be in for the Carlton role or the Essendon role or anything like that, but that's a strange one.
Funnily enough, I've been quite enjoying his analysis. He's quite good, actually.
I've always liked Buckley.
So now,
as a commentator,
we've got a couple more years of it on that.
What did you think of Ken Hinckley's commentary? Because I know a lot of people don't like it.
Like a drill in my head. Like, speaking of which, I got an apology to make. I said it was Hodge who made some stupid comment on the, but it was Selwood. They both sound, so apologies to Selwood and to Hodge. You both sound terrible on the on the broadcast and both clueless analytically, but there you go.
All right, let's talk Casey, because Casey returned to the winners list with a convincing 31-point victory over North Melbourne's VFL side, breaking their recent losing streak with a much-needed confidence boost. After an even opening quarter, the Demons took control with a burst of 5 goals in 9 minutes during the second term and eventually kicked 7 unanswered goals to put the game beyond doubt. Several AFL-listed players put their hands up for senior selection. Bailey Laurie was outstanding through the midfield. Lucas Cook impressed both in defence and up forward, while Christian Salem continued his return from injury with 26 disposals and 5 clearances. Paddy Cross was arguably the standout, finishing with 23 disposals, 7 tackles and 3 goals in another eye-catching performance. Both Laurie and Cook were rested after half-time, considering injuries to Disco, Turner and CJ, and the 5-day break that they would be having going in to the Cats game. There was also encouraging signs from youngsters Xavier Taylor, Ricky Mentha Jr., Riley Onley and Max Mapley, while Tom McDonald kicked 3 goals after spending time both forward and in the ruck. It may not change Casey's fortunes this season, but it was an important performance that rewarded effort, restored confidence and gave Melbourne selectors plenty to think about ahead of Friday night's AFL clash. George, do you have anything, and Bidman, do you have anything to add from what you saw?
It was nice to watch a VFL game on the Sunday instead of competing with the seniors on the same days. It was we've moved from cow paddocks to sand pits, which is what the Arden Street ground was a bit like. Apparently, they had to move their women's simulation game or practice game away from Arden Street because they just simply couldn't maintain the ground in any sort of fit condition for even this. I think Andy summed it up pretty quickly. Casey took control of the game basically in that second, third quarter period where they kicked 5 goals, I think it was, in 9 minutes of play. The standouts, of course, were in fact Lucas Cook, who had something ridiculous like 22 possessions to half-time and then took him off and then included a goal as well. So, yeah, he's really, and I think we've already, given that he was taken off to preserve him for this coming game against Geelong.
He's playing.
And we've lost 2 defenders. I think that is an absolute Monty for this week. They also took Bailey Laurie off as well. Salem played the full game, had some extended breaks, but still played the full game. Interestingly, he played almost exclusively in the midfield and around the ground, all over the place. He's not playing as a backman, and I suspect when we see him coming back, that's going to be his role, more forward than back.
What do you think about that in the twilight of his career?
I don't think he can actually play the backman's role like it's played, and we've got
positions are going to take.
Yeah, we've got Bowie and we've got Colt, which would have been naturally Salem's position, but now you've got to find another role for him. We don't want to upset that back line the way it stands.
So do you think he's going to get a game only if we get injuries and then they'll put him in? Or
I reckon he's too good to. You don't leave a player. He's a great Ferrari in your garage when you've got some.
He's a good he's a good distributor, and looking at the easy one that he can replace quite frankly is Melcham.
Yeah,
you get a lot more out of a Salem than you do out of a Melcham, particularly at the moment. So, Tommy Mack played a great game. He played everywhere. He played forward. He played ruck. He kicked 3 goals.
I love him.
Just amazing. Just amazing what, and he doesn't seem to complain about it. He just plays his Tommy Mack game every single game. The same thing. Puts in 100%. Mapley played a lot in the ruck, and he's getting better every week. That was interesting to see and watch his progression. He's obviously not going to play seniors this year, but he's a nice one to have in in the back pocket for next year. Oddly's playing more midfield as well and starting to learn what's required to play midfield even at VFL level. So again, he's another nice one to have in the back pocket. So it was an interesting game we gave. They really did. There's no chance that Casey's going to have any effect on finals this year. They're just not going to make it. So it was good to put North away, who had 13 AFL listed players on the ground. We had 16.
Okay. All right, let's get into our changes. Ollie Fan writes, given Laurie and Cook were rested after halftime for Casey, suggests that T-Mac won't be playing against Geelong, which I think is a mistake. We will need his experience and seasoned big body. Perhaps they're thinking of playing Petty back. I think he is a liability as a defender because in every game he makes at least one mistake. What are your thoughts about this? D Old Fart writes, I agree with Bimman that Melky has become a horses for courses player in his twilight years, and I'm not sure that I see a role for him versus the Cats. His leadership and experience might be valuable, but I think they would run off him too easily, making his selection high risk. Does the panel agree? And if so, who replaces him? We've got some audio from Noah.
Hi, this is Noah from Brighton. Just like to say I really love the podcast. Now with Disco Turner and CJ out for probably a couple of weeks, we've got an important game with the Cats, and the defence is extremely important. I'm assuming Harrison Petty will come into the back line to assist. Who else do you think would come in to replace CJ?
So big man, followed by George, given we will almost certainly be making two changes this week with the injuries to Disco and CJ, who comes in, who goes out for our clash against the Cats, and will we be playing two rucks again this week, given the Cats' lack of a genuine ruck?
Shout out to my mate, the Gorilla, who I went to the footy with on the weekend. He said, George and I shouldn't talk about selections at all, given we don't ever get them right. So I'm going to change, mate.
It seems like Disco and Laurie, not Disco, Cook and Laurie will probably come in. We'll make any changes.
I'm going to say what I would do rather than what I think will happen. I would drop Heath. The Cats don't have a Sherry equivalent. The Cats will still go after Maxi, but the other teammates can get around him and protect him, and Pets can give him a chop out.
Is Petty back? What do we...
Yeah, it was announced with the injury list that he's available this week.
Okay, so he's back.
Personally, I disagree with Noah. I don't think he will go back. I think he'll go forward. I think Cook will come in, and I think we'll run, short. I don't know that Cook will come in maybe to replace Pets, but I guess maybe you look at Tom McDonald, but I wouldn't mind betting that we, on a slippery Friday night, and it's always slippery. It doesn't matter whether it's rainy or not. At this time of year, it's on a Friday nighttime games at the G are always slippery. So I wouldn't be too fussed about needing to have even T-Mac back there for height. I'd said on Demonland, I wrote that it was my call. I'd drop Heath and Melksham, bring in Cook to replace CJ. Pets comes in to play forward ruck, potentially Salem on low time on ground, playing half forward. And I'd drop Fitzy too personally, but, then who goes into the middle, and if Windsor can't, then that probably nixes that. Someone, Gibroni, poster on Demonland, whose stuff I really like, responded by saying that he thought Cross would be a better replacement for Melksham than Salem, which is probably true. He had a good game in this 23-odd possessions, I think, in the Casey game. So perhaps that's right. He's kicked 3 goals, didn't he, as well?
Yeah. 3 goals.
But it'll be fascinating because Kingy obviously knows, this is what Jabroni said, it'll be an interesting game as Kingy knows Geelong, he knows Scott's DNA, and hopefully will find an advantage with no Cameron Holmes and Manor and our form at the G. Would Geelong go with a more defensive setup? I thought that's was a really sort of cluey sort of comment from Gibroni. I didn't know at that stage that Disco was definitely out. So, and CJ's a test. So maybe CJ doesn't go out.
CJ won't be. He'll be a test that he'll fail.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's like that. It's set up to fail. But who got taken off at halftime? Laurie and Cook. And that's normally
Laurie and Cook. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Laurie comes in and places Fitzy, but I don't know. I like Laurie as a mid though.
No.
It also could be Laurie sort of as the hold, he'll be there as the holdover.
It
took
could be
him off then
emergency.
just as an in case
I think Jabroni's right. I mean, what's that sort of saying? The selection integrity. Cross has now put 2 good games together and was one of our best players in this game. So perhaps, but then again, maybe no changes whatsoever, and I'll get it wrong.
There will be changes.
We've got 2 definites out, so we've got to bring 2 definites in. Petty's one of them. The question is who's the second one?
And it doesn't have to be like for like. That's the thing. That's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, Cook definitely comes in as a replacement for one of them. So what happens then? I'd also drop Melcham out, quite frankly.
Melcham, the Cross,
and I'd bring Cross in, even off 5 days between games for Cross. I reckon he provides far more than what Melcham has in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
It gives us that run up forward. We just can't afford it. I would still leave Heath in the side, and the reason is that they rested B-Clubs last week, and they've still got is it Edwards, their young ruckman? They've got a young ruckman who's very capable. If I remember, I can't just off the top of my head. But B-Clubs comes in, and all of a sudden you got two ruckmen again.
Yeah.
Laurie, I'm not sure about. Might be a bench player or something like that, but. I wouldn't be bringing Laurie in ahead of Fitzgerald. You need the grunt players, particularly against Atkins in the middle.
Yeah.
What will be the interesting match will be to see whether they put Mullen on Cozzy or try to put Mullen on Cozzy. But I think Cozzy will just burn him off. But it's going to be an interesting one this week. But I think we'll see the debut of Cook, if nothing else.
And it'll be one for the. It'll be one for the people like yourself, Andy, that love the strategy coach, because you're going to have the apprentice versus the master. And
believe me, he does his homework, Scott. He knows exactly what he's going to do.
Look at the 2 players. The way Langford's playing is just basically exactly the same as the way Ollie Dempsey played. But from what I understand, Ollie Dempsey's role was designed by King. So, so it'll be fascinating game. I can't wait to hearing them both talk about it.
It'll be interesting to see whether they put Langdon on Dempsey.
There
could be burn marks up my side of the ground on the ground between the 2 of them.
Yeah, let's get into the preview for the 2nd week in a row. Melbourne's going to face an opponent that they've yet to meet this season, returning to the MCG on Friday night to take on Geelong. I think it's also, I don't have the stats in front of me, but this is another game where we're playing a team with a much longer break than we have.
6 days, 8
versus
days.
8, yeah. It's happened a lot
Twice,
this year.
2 weeks in a row. I mean, it's just a bloody joke. It's just a joke.
It is. Cats coming to the clash after ending a month-long winless stretch with a victory over St Kilda last weekend. And remarkably, this will just be the 14th home and away meeting between Melbourne and Geelong at the MCG in the past quarter of a century. With only 8 points separating the 2 clubs on the ladder as they battle for a top 6 position. The Demons' victory would create valuable breathing room over the wildcard contenders while keeping the dream of a top 4 finish firmly alive. George, followed by Bimman, your preview of our all-important clash against the Cats.
Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic game. Friday night for us, finally at last. Both sides have suffered injuries from their last game. Of course, we've mentioned Disco and Jath from us. They lost Manor and Holmes out of their side. Big losses. They've already missing Cameron and Tanner Bruin out of their side with injuries from the previous week. And O'Connor spent half the game, I reckon, in his last game on the bench having his hamstrings rubbed. So I reckon Dangerfield played absolutely minimum minutes on the ground because he's reaching the end of his operational life. Interestingly, they rested B-Clavs, Martin and Collar Jasny last week. So they're sort of setting them up, but having lost both Manor and Holmes, I think that's going to affect them in terms of who they can actually put on the ground. So it's going to be an absolutely fascinating game for us. It'll be a great game to watch. I suspect it's going to be almost an 8-point game for us. If we win this game, you can almost cement top 6 for us. If we lose it, then we're back in the pack. Try to hold off a couple of others who'll be pushing up.
Yeah, it's a huge game. Top 6 is critical. Massive game for both clubs, actually. Like, it's a huge game of footy Friday night. Our home ground. Hopefully, as the coach said, get along, these fans, and make it noisy and make it loud. And these fans have been great this year. So, in terms of I'll do the full preview. I'll get that done on Thursday. Hopefully, Andy, and all time 135 to 89. So last week we were in the positive on that column. So let's get one back again at 90. But at the venue, it's 54 apiece. So let's get a win to go ahead on that. Just looking at the ratings, the two different sides on Wheelo's ratings, it's plus 10 overall for us, plus 14.9. So for them, they're still very strong. That doesn't take into account the squads, though, who are playing. Their strength is attack, 11.6, but that's struggled a little bit of late. Our defence is really improving. Our defence was in the negative at round 10. It's now plus 2. So we're slowly sort of getting up into that premiership window of strong defence and strong offence. But just having a quick look at the sort of attacking and overall numbers, they've got us covered pretty well for a few things. So it should be a terrific game. Can't wait to get along. I assume both of you fellas are going along.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go on, Andy.
No, I was just going to reiterate what you said and just implore everyone to get along, bring your mates, bring your family, get everyone along on Friday night. Should be a cracking game.
So whilst they're rated a bit high, interesting thing is the ratings of the players. Is I said who our top rated players are, which is Maxi Gawn 18, Cozzy 16.5, and Cade Chandler 13.3. Who do you reckon their highest rated player is?
At the moment,
this season.
Oh, the season.
Because pressure, is Atkins up there?
Nope.
No.
Okay. Top-rated player this season is Bailey Smith.
Of course. Yeah.
Got about him.
Then Reece Stanley, 15.4, and Max Home, who's out, so huge.
Reece Stanley's been injured for half the season.
So that's off one game. That's where.
Before you're talking about excluding players.
Well, I didn't. So there you go. So of the players, so of their top 5, so Stanley's number 2, one game, but Max Home is number 3. He's out. Manners out. He's and then Dempsey is their 5th highest rated player, who's played 18 games. So he's 11.3. So our top 5 rated players are all above their top 5 rated players. So Atkins is rated. His player rating's 10.4. So average, pretty good, but average.
Well,
Ritter's 10.3 by way of example, and Trent Rivers is 11.1 in his.
Well, we're closing in on 2 hours. George, you did want to talk about AFLW. Can you do that quickly?
Yeah, just very quickly. The girls had a practice come simulation game against Richmond at Casey this week. They ran out winners just on the scoreboard, 7-7 to 6-6. The good news is that this game featured the return of Liv Purcell to the side to play after an ACL last season. The goal kickers, unsurprisingly, Kate Orr, Lucy Bannon, Hanksy, Reese Witherspoon, and Fitzsimon.
Reese Witherspoon?
Sorry, wrong. Yeah, Witherspoon was one of the goals.
That would be a get,
George.
Yeah, it would be. So, if you want to see Reese Witherspoon, you better turn up to the AFLW games.
And I hear
that's a great signing.
Yeah.
Witherspoon is actually now in the Avatar, I think.
Okay. We saw again only short highlights on the club website, but there was a lot of strong tackling. I think was the going theme for the game. Interestingly, Jacinta Hose was in the ruck in only her second game with the club, so that's interesting. And they were playing Lauren Pearce forward, who normally does most of the rucking in the last season. But she's probably getting towards the end of her career, and Jacinta will be the one who'll be taking over the reins. So just an interesting thing. I wish the club had put their training times up. People want to see the girls. It's only a couple of weeks till the season proper starts. So if you want to encourage people to turn up to games and things, just put them on the website. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yep. Good call, George. Just before we wrap up, Andy, can I 3 questions with notice for consideration for you to put on the run sheet next week? I've got a bugbear, one of which is that when our big JVR marks the ball, kicks a goal, everyone says "roo," based on the fact of a mispronunciation of his name. It's Royan, so surely it should be Roy, we're all crying. And so I want you to use it's really a question if you can do it, use your social media clout, which is formidable, to get a groundswell. So instead of the crowd yelling "roo," we all yell as one Roy. It will be culturally respectful and a point of difference. So that's one. Just for you.
I'm just going to tell you now, I'm not going to be doing that. But anyway.
All right. Well,
there's not many of us in the crowd that can understand Dutch in any case.
Well, you don't have to understand Dutch to say Roy.
Roo does sound cooler, but
no, it doesn't. Roy sounds.
I'm trying
so
to wind
cooler.
down things. I'm not trying.
It'd be like Doug yelling out Roy or Doug or Bruce or something. It's much better. Say, all right. Well, I'll have to do it with my social media clout, which is minimal. The second one is, can we, as of next week, can we get your from now on in your ladder predictor, please? I'm disappointed.
I said, I think I mentioned it in your thread for last week, for the podcast thread, that I'd been doing it already 2 months ago. I can give it to you. But mine's going to be very negative. I'm going to see where the highest we can get
well, you do it
by winning the least amount of games. So
can we have a standing Andy's ladder predictor segment from now on to the finals, please?
Sure, definitely.
And then the final one is this.
I'm more interested in, can we miss the final still?
Whatever way you want to run your bloody MFCSS ladder predictor, you roll it how you want to roll it. I like that George's subtle one before that worked. And the last one is that over the next couple of weeks, I'd like to know both of your. I'm really disappointed in one aspect of the Melbourne Footy Club. Our songs are woeful after goals, with one or two.
Well, that's not the Melbourne Football Club. That's the players.
Exactly.
The players.
So woeful. It's so woeful. Now I know you know them all. When I want you, if you could tell them. Now, if you could tell Maxie, people don't even know what's the most common thing I hear in the crowd is, "What's that song?" Anyway, I'd like to hear if you were to choose a song. Give it some thought. Is after a goal, what would it be for both of you?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not now. Just sit on it and think about it.
All right. Well, just remind
your homework will be due next Monday night.
I guarantee you, within 5 minutes of us ending this program, I would have forgotten that. So make sure you bring it up.
All right, I will. I'll put it in the thread.
All right, well, that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Look out for Big Man Stats Files preview podcast on Thursday if you enjoy a deeper dive into the stats in the lead up to the Cats game. Thank you to our 5-star reviewers on Apple Podcast, and that was a thank you to Gorn of the Dead. Thank you to our voicemailers, Rose Star and Noah. Thank you to our caller, who I didn't catch the name. I apologize. I think it had to do with the Bluetooth connection from my phone to the mixer here. It used to be done via a cable. It's not anymore. It's via Bluetooth, and it's just awful, which is why when I do the interviews with the players, I have to bring out my old mixer that has a physical cable connected to the thing, because I can't trust this bloody Bluetooth. Your questions and comments are an integral part of the show, so thank you to our Demonland posters who submitted questions and comments. Thank you to Lefty, Go Lordy, Daddy Jedi, D Old Fart, Flower Magic, Gorn of the Dead, Ollie Fan, D Spirit, D Minion, Rue Beauty, Mandy Lorian, Harp and D Lazy, Red and Bluebeard, Doug Reamer, Go D's, and D Star 9. Thank you to
and Rose Star for calling in.
Yes, thank you
for the message.
I did mention him already. Right. Thank you to my co-host George and B-Man, and thank you once again, guys, for holding down the fort while I was away. Thank you to you, our loyal listeners. Don't forget to look out for my interview with Demons Premiership defender Jake Bowie to chat about his incredible 17-game winning streak from debut. We all forget about that, but that was incredible. His role in the club's drought-breaking premiership, the team's resurgence in 2026. I'll be sure to ask him about that and a couple of questions about the backline that I've taken down and plenty more. Check out the podcast feed later in the week to listen to that interview. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and a comment on Apple Podcasts and we'll read it and give you a shout out on the next show. Go Demons!
Go Red Leggers!
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, it's an emblem for me and for you. Well, it's the emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue. Well, every heart beats true for the red and the blue, as we sing a song for you. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the red and the blue. Well, the team played fine in the year 39. We're the team that no one can lick. And you'll find us there after the final bell with the spirit of 1926. Well, every heart beats true for the red and the blue, as we sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgot,